There comes a quiet moment, not dramatic, not loud, when you realize you've been surviving, not living. You've checked the boxes, you've followed the rules, but your soul, it's still waiting. You move through the world, competent, capable, even admired. You fulfill your duties, meet deadlines, remember birthdays, and smile when expected. From the outside, it seems like life is working. But inside, something is shrinking, something essential, something irreplaceable. You tell yourself you're just tired, that it's just a phase, that you'll feel better after this weekend, this promotion, this next achievement. But deep down, you know, this isn't fatigue. It's the soul's quiet cry. This is not your life. And you wonder, when did you start abandoning yourself? Carl Jung called this the tragedy of the modern man. He loses his soul long before he even knows what it is. We are raised to perform, to please, to adapt. We're praised for fitting in, rewarded for conforming. But in the process, we forget how to listen inward. We silence the whispers that used to guide us. We ignore the dreams that once felt too wild to be wrong. And so we drift. Not dramatically, not in chaos, but in quiet compliance, in tiny betrayals of the self, in 1,000 small choices that lead us further and further from the truth of who we are. You might not feel broken, but you don't feel whole either. You wake up, but you're not really awake. You laugh, but something in you stays silent. You succeed, but something still aches. It's as if you're living someone else's life, wearing someone else's name. Jung said that neurosis is not always illness. It is often a protest, a rebellion of the soul against a life that dishonors it. The anxiety, the apathy, the disconnection, they aren't problems to be medicated. They are signals, sacred messages. A redirection from the unconscious saying, stop, listen, come back. The question is, will you? Because healing is not something that happens to you. It is something you must choose. A turning, a reckoning, a vow to no longer abandon your essence for the sake of approval. This video is not for the ones still clinging to illusion. It's not for the ones who still believe that success will save them. It's for you, the one who has started to feel it. The one who knows something sacred is missing. The one who is done pretending. Let's walk into the places you've been avoiding. Let's speak the truths you've been silencing. Let's meet the self that has never stopped waiting. Because your life is not meant to be endured. It is meant to be lived. And if you want to stop wasting it, you must first remember where you lost it. Are you ready? There are moments when you feel like you're sinking. But the world sees you standing tall. You wake up, get dressed, do what you're supposed to. You smile just enough. You make small talk. You answer emails. You push yourself through the hours, convincing yourself this is what it means to be functioning. But beneath it all, there's a quiet ache. An emptiness that wraps itself around your chest like invisible thread. You can't name it. You can't point to it. You just feel it. In the pauses between your thoughts. In the silence after a laugh. In the space between where you are and where you long to be. Most people call it burnout. Some call it depression. Others slap on the label general anxiety and hand you a prescription with a smile. As if the pain is an error. As if your soul just needs a chemical tweak. But what if it isn't a malfunction? What if the sadness isn't wrong? Carl Jung believed that much of what we call disorder is, in truth, a spiritual signal, a flare sent up from the deepest parts of you. He said that suffering is not just a condition to be fixed, it's a message to be heard, a coded language from the self you've forgotten. The anxiety that wakes you at night is not there to torment you, it is there to awaken you. The feeling that you're off, that you're somehow not where you belong, that isn't weakness. It's clarity. It's the soul whispering, this life isn't yours. Not in a dramatic existential crisis way, but in the subtle, relentless sense that you are misaligned, that something sacred inside you has been silenced for too long. But we're trained not to listen. We're trained to adapt, to keep going, to medicate and override, to mute the discomfort instead of asking, why is it here? And so we distract ourselves, work more, scroll more, drink more, buy more, until one day we realize nothing is working. Jung warned of this. He said the soul will not tolerate betrayal forever. It will demand attention, and if you keep suppressing the messages it sends, they will not disappear. They will intensify. Numbness will grow into despair. Disconnection will turn to disorientation. Apathy will become collapse. But it doesn't have to be that way, because the void you feel is not your fault. It is not a personal failure. It is not proof that something is wrong with you. It is proof that something deeper is trying to wake you. Something ancient, something sacred, something that knows exactly who you are beneath all the roles you've played. It is not here to shame you, it is here to reclaim you. And the first step is listening, not judging, not fixing, just listening to the ache, to the exhaustion, to the emptiness, because those are not enemies. They are messengers. And when you stop fighting them, when you lean in and ask, what are you trying to show me? You begin the journey back to yourself, a journey Jung called individuation. Not perfection, not improvement, but wholeness. And that begins not with action, but with awareness. Now that you have heard the call, will you continue ignoring it? Or will you finally start listening to the only voice that truly matters, the one inside? Because beyond the numbness, beyond the ache, something luminous is waiting. Let's keep going. There is a myth we've all been fed, that pain is a sign of failure, and silence is strength. That if your heart is heavy, or your mind feels scattered, you're broken. That if your smile cracks under pressure, you need fixing. But Carl Jung shattered that myth. He didn't see psychological suffering as a defect to be corrected. He saw it as a rite of passage, a sacred initiation into the truth of who we are. He believed that madness, despair, anxiety, these were not mistakes in the system. They were messages, symbols, invitations, not to escape, but to enter, to go deeper, to descend. Because the healing you seek will never be found on the surface. It does not live in denial or busyness or pills that promise to numb the ache. It lives in the shadows, in the forgotten places, in the parts of you that are begging to be felt, not silenced. Jung said the soul does not speak in words. It speaks in dreams, in symptoms, in symbols, in the ache that refuses to go away. And if you ignore that voice long enough, it will scream. The breakdown is not the end. It is the threshold. You were never meant to bypass your darkness. You were meant to walk through it. Because it is in the descent, in the willingness to confront what you've spent your life avoiding, that something astonishing happens. You begin to see, not just the wound, but the wisdom hidden within it. Not just the trauma, but the transformation it carries in its hands. Jung knew this firsthand. He didn't write about the soul from the comfort of an ivory tower. He lived the descent. He wrestled with his shadow. He faced the abyss. And what he found there was not just madness. It was meaning. He wrote, "There is no coming to consciousness without pain. Because to wake up is to shed illusions, to stop pretending, to stop decorating your cage and start seeking the key. But that key is never outside. It's not in the next self-help book or the next job or the next relationship. It's in the part of you you've tried to exile. The shame, the grief, the anger, the longing. The medicine is in the wound. The light is born from the dark. And the more you turn away from it, the more you suffer. Not because you are weak, but because you are resisting your own liberation. You were not made to float above the pain. You were made to transform through it. This is what Jung called the process of individuation. Not a spiritual bypass, but a sacred confrontation. The courage to look in the mirror and say, I am not here to be perfect. I am here to be whole. And wholeness requires depth. It requires facing the monsters you've been taught to run from and realizing they were never monsters at all. They were fragments of you, frightened, forgotten, waiting to come home. So when the ache returns, and it will, don't rush to silence it. Don't label it, medicate it, or call it weakness. Ask it instead, what are you trying to teach me? And then listen. Because what feels like breaking down may actually be breaking open. And just beyond that breaking, something waits, not the old version of you, but the true one. Still buried beneath the noise, still burning quietly beneath the pain, still hoping you'll return. There is a sickness in our world that no one dares name. It wears no scars, it leaves no bruises, and yet it hollows people out from the inside. It is the quiet epidemic of disconnection, from soul, from meaning, from the truth of who we are. We are taught to smile on cue, to meet deadlines, to chase goals we didn't choose. From the moment we are born, we're groomed to be productive before we are ever taught to be whole. Be good, they say. Be strong. Be successful. But never be real. No one teaches you how to sit with sorrow. No one shows you how to listen to your longing. And so you forget the language of your soul and learn to speak the dialect of performance. You learn to wear the mask so well that eventually even you forget it's a mask. You become the job title, the social media profile, the list of achievements they applaud but never truly see you through. You're praised for how much you can endure, not for how deeply you can feel. In this world, your value is measured by output. Your worth is tied to your efficiency. Your identity is constructed from the outside in, not the inside out. And so, you begin to disappear, not all at once, but slowly. A smile that doesn't reach your eyes, a fatigue that sleep can't touch, a success that leaves you emptier than failure. This isn't laziness. This is soul starvation. You were never meant to be a machine. You were born a being with depth, with mystery, with wildness in your blood. But society fears what it cannot control, and the soul is uncontrollable. So it teaches you to fear it too, to silence the questions that haunt you at night, to laugh louder when the silence gets too thick, to keep scrolling, keep shopping, keep working, anything but stillness. Because in stillness, the truth returns. And the truth is this: the way we live is not living, it is performing. And Jung saw this. Long before the age of smartphones and algorithms, he knew what was coming. A culture that rewards the surface and punishes the depths. He wrote that the greatest tragedy of modern man is that he has lost contact with himself. And when that contact is lost, what replaces it is a hollow mimicry of life. Not joy, just stimulation. Not connection, just convenience. Not meaning, just marketing. You wake up, check your phone, go to work, chase a dream that isn't yours, numb the pain you can't name. Sleep, repeat, and slowly the soul retreats. Not out of punishment, but out of preservation. Because your essence will not shout over the noise. It waits, in quiet corners, in dreams you dismiss, in the ache you keep postponing. It waits for you to remember that you were not made for this noise, that beneath all the layers you had to wear to survive, something holy still breathes, something unbroken, something real. And though the world may not applaud it, your soul will, and that will be enough. There comes a moment, quiet, unmistakable, when you realize this life you've been living does not belong to you. It looks good from the outside. You've played your part well. The masks fit. The scripts are memorized. But deep within, something stirs. Something that refuses to be silenced anymore. Carl Jung called this moment the beginning of individuation. Not the start of becoming better, but the start of becoming true. Individuation is not about achievement or progress as the world defines it. It is not a checklist. It is not another self-improvement project wrapped in motivational quotes. It is the soul's revolt against everything that is false. It is the sacred act of returning to yourself. But before you can become who you are, you must confront who you are not. You must peel back the layers of conditioning, the shoulds, the musts, the roles you inherited without question. You must look at the choices you made while sleepwalking and ask, who was I trying to become? And why? This is not a comfortable path, because individuation demands that you stop running from your fear, from your anger, from the parts of you that make others uncomfortable. It demands that you sit with your shadow, that forgotten twin of your personality, made of everything you've denied, hidden, rejected. It whispers, don't be perfect, be whole. That's the paradox. To be whole, you must stop striving to be good. You must meet the darkness in yourself with open eyes and open arms, not to indulge it, not to shame it, but to understand it, to see it not as an enemy, but as a messenger. Jung taught that until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate. And what's unconscious in you? The dream you buried at 17, the grief you never named, the anger you swallowed to keep the peace, the truth you diluted to stay lovable. The deeper you go, the more painful it becomes, but also the more alive. Because this is not the pain of destruction. It is the pain of remembering. Individuation also calls you to listen to your dreams, not just the ones you chase in daylight, but the ones that visit you in sleep. They speak in symbols, a house collapsing, a snake shedding its skin, a mirror you can't look into. These are not random. These are maps. Maps from the soul to the self, the unshakable, eternal center of your being. The self is not your ego. It is not your image. It is not your name. It is the quiet watcher behind all roles. It is what remains when everything false falls away. The journey to the self is not linear. You will get lost. You will grieve the masks you once mistook for your face. You will question everything again and again. But that is how you know the journey is real. Because to become yourself, you must first unbecome everything you were told to be. And then, in the stillness that follows, you begin to hear your own voice. Not the loud one, shaped by fear or the need to please, but the voice that rises from within, calm, clear, relentless in its knowing. That is the voice of the self. And once you hear it, you cannot go back. You are no longer living for applause. You are no longer decorating the cage. You are walking toward freedom, not perfection, but wholeness. There's a silence that follows success. You reach the goals. You earn the title. You buy the things. And yet, something inside remains untouched, unmoved. You smile for the world but feel hollow behind the eyes. That's the wound no one talks about, the invisible ache of a life that looks full, but feels empty. Carl Jung saw it long before the world did. He knew the real illness of the modern soul wasn't depression or anxiety or burnout. Those were only the symptoms. The real illness was the loss of meaning. A quiet epidemic. A soul starving in a world drunk on distraction. And the more we try to silence this emptiness, with pills, with noise, with more tasks, more validation, the louder it cries. Not in words, but in fatigue, in restlessness, in the gnawing feeling that something vital is missing, because what's missing is you, not the persona you've crafted, not the competent version of yourself who gets things done, but the part of you that longs to feel alive, that aches not for safety, but for truth. Jung called it the voice of the soul. And when meaning disappears, that voice begins to fade, until all that remains is a faint echo. But even then, it doesn't die. It waits. It waits for you in the quiet moments between obligations, in the space between breaths, in the gaze that lingers too long on a sunrise or a stranger's kindness. It waits until you're tired enough, tired of pretending, tired of pushing, tired of calling numbness normal. And when you finally stop running, you hear it again, whispering, "This life is not yours. These dreams were not chosen. This pace was never sustainable. And this silence you feel, it isn't failure. It's a summons, a sacred reminder that you were never meant to survive on noise alone. You were meant to seek something deeper, something eternal, something that cannot be sold or scheduled. That something is meaning. Not the kind printed in books or found in someone else's philosophy, but the meaning that rises when you align your life with your soul, when what you do reflects who you are. And this kind of meaning, it doesn't shout. It doesn't promise fame or fortune. It hums quietly beneath your ribs when you act from love, when you tell the truth, when you choose connection over approval, integrity over ease. You don't need more motivation. You don't need another hack, another habit, another planner. You need to wake up. To realize that your suffering isn't a personal failure. It's your soul trying to break through the noise. And the medicine is not outside you. It's not in productivity or applause. It's in the stillness where the pain lives. It's in the truth you've been avoiding. It's in the life you would live if you stopped asking for permission. You can't fill a spiritual void with material noise. Because the soul doesn't speak in likes or metrics or check marks. It speaks in resonance, and if your life doesn't resonate, it doesn't matter how fast you run or how much you achieve. You will always feel lost. That's not a curse. It's a call. A call to return to what matters. To stop wasting your life on survival and start living it in truth. There's a door inside you that you've been avoiding your whole life, not because it's locked, but because you know what waits behind it. The unfinished business, the memories you've buried, the emotions you've numbed. And Jung knew this better than anyone. The unconscious does not forget what you refuse to feel. It waits, not to punish you, but to be met, to be held, to be healed. You were taught to fear your darkness, to push it down, to label it bad or broken. But what if I told you, your unconscious is not your enemy? It is your oldest ally. The part of you that has carried your pain when you couldn't, the part that whispers through dreams, through symbols, through sudden tears that seem to have no name. This is not weakness. It is the language of the soul. And until you learn to speak it, until you turn toward the shadow, you will remain a stranger to your own life. Jung warned us. Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life, and you will call it fate. So many of us wander through life asking, why do I always attract the same kind of relationship? Why do I keep sabotaging my own success? Why do I feel stuck, no matter how much I try to change? The answer is not in the surface. It is in the shadow. Because what you suppress will always find a way out. It will speak through the tension in your jaw, the tightness in your chest, the panic at night when no one is watching. And the more you fight it, the stronger it becomes. But when you turn toward it, when you stop resisting and begin to listen, it softens. The monster under the bed becomes a message, the chaos becomes a compass, and the unconscious stops screaming because it has finally been heard. This is not a descent into madness. This is a return to wholeness. The journey inward is not about perfection. It's about integration, about weaving back together the broken threads of yourself so that you no longer have to live in fragments, because buried inside the unconscious is not just pain. There is creativity, there is intuition, there is forgotten joy, and above all, there is power. The kind of power that doesn't dominate but liberates. The kind of power that rises when you no longer run from who you are. Jung never promised this would be easy. He only promised it would be real. And real is what you came here for. Not performance, not productivity, but authenticity. To live not as a role, but as a soul. To reclaim the parts of you that were left behind in childhood, in trauma, in shame. You are not broken. You are disconnected. And the unconscious, dark and mysterious and sacred, is the bridge back to yourself. So if you feel lost, if you feel haunted, don't turn away. Walk toward it, and you will see the thing you feared most was never darkness. It was your light waiting to be remembered. Transformation does not begin with action. It begins with attention. Not the kind of attention you give to the world outside, but the kind that turns inward with reverence, with stillness, with trembling. Because true change never starts with a new routine. It starts with a rupture, a sacred pause. A moment of silence so profound it unmasks everything false within you. You've been taught to fix yourself with effort, with more discipline, more affirmations, more steps to success. But what if I told you? Healing begins when you stop doing and start being. Carl Jung did not lead us toward hyperproductivity. He invited us to surrender, to sit with the shadow, to enter the dream world, to let the unconscious speak in its own strange, symbolic tongue. He knew. The soul is not moved by commands. It is moved by contact, by the intimacy of your own presence. And that means letting go of the illusion that you are in control, that you can will your way into freedom. Number. Freedom begins when you feel what you've avoided, when you face the grief beneath your anxiety, the anger beneath your sadness, the longing beneath your numbness, and you don't try to fix it. You just see it, hold it, breathe with it. This is the inner work Jung spoke of. Not glamorous, not shareable, but revolutionary. To meditate is not to escape the world. It is to descend back into the forgotten chambers of your being, to close your eyes, not to rest, but to remember. And when the image arises, a snake, a mirror, a house with no doors, you don't dismiss it as nonsense. You listen, because the soul never speaks in sentences. It speaks in symbols, and it has been speaking to you all along. In your dreams, in your reactions, in the way your body tenses when a lie is told, in the way your chest opens when truth is near. This is the real awakening, not flashy, but fierce, not loud, but life-altering. and it cannot be rushed. You must be willing to sit in the silence, to let the noise of the world fall away, to choose honesty over comfort, and truly see what lives inside you. This is not self-help. This is self-confrontation. And it is the beginning of everything, because once you have tasted the truth of your own depths, you can never go back. You will no longer settle for surface-level living. You will no longer betray your soul for approval. You will no longer mistake distraction for direction. Instead, you will become someone who listens, someone who pauses before reacting, someone who creates space for the sacred to speak. And in that space, life will whisper back to you, not with instructions, but with presence, with peace, with a quiet clarity that says, "This is who I am. This is where I begin again." Here is the English version of your beautifully written conclusion. In the end, freedom does not come from where you thought it would. It is not found in the recognition of others, not in accumulation, titles, or achievements framed and hung on walls. It does not come from being healed by societal standards or becoming fine just to return to the same exhausting cycle. Freedom is when you no longer live as the version of yourself that the world programmed you to be. It is when you pause, amidst the noise of expectations, fears, and conformity, and speak a simple, soul-deep truth. This life is no longer mine. Because you've seen it clearly now. Everything you once struggled to become was merely a fabricated self, built for survival, not for living. And now, when you dare to let go of all that, when you choose to walk away from a life that no longer honors your soul, when you choose honesty over achievement, feeling over performance, then something profound begins to unfold. You don't become someone else. You become someone real. You no longer need to fill the emptiness with new plans, new people, or new ideals, because your presence, whole, silent, and truthful, is already complete. Jung once wrote, "The privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are." But that privilege does not come easily. It requires you to let go of all that is false. It demands you face your pain, your shame, your denied desires, and stop turning away. It asks you to live without needing to be understood, praised, or molded into any shape at all. Because you finally see, nothing is worth the cost of your soul's peace. And when you begin to move from that place, from the center of your true self, life itself begins to move differently. You no longer chase happiness. You become it. You no longer seek love. You live as its embodiment. You no longer fear solitude, because you have finally met yourself. This is not the end. This is the beginning of a life no longer borrowed, no longer performed, no longer lost. Only you, whole, awake, and free.